Warren Buffett. It's the sound of money.
$9.2 billion. Buffett, the second richest man in America.
He's estimated to be worth about $62 billion. It makes him the richest man in the world.
You know, Buffett is not exactly what you might expect.
Even though he's in the money business, he doesn't even own a calculator or a computer.
He takes the long view, and it's made him billions, many billions.
Maybe you can beat the House, but I don't think you can beat Warren Buffett.
Buffett filed his first tax return at 13 years old.
But he's no average billionaire, Tom.
No, he certainly isn't, Matt.
He's a $44 billion average Joe.
Warren Buffett has an approach that doesn't make him very popular with his fellow billionaires.
Warren Buffett, the boy from Nebraska who grew up to become the Wizard of Omaha.
What was it about him that allowed him to become the richest man in the world? How did he do it?
Well, Berkshire is a holding company of sorts. It owns a large number of separate businesses that operate independently of each other and, to a great extent, from the parent company, Berkshire Hathaway.
What gold's been red hot? My favorite green gold. So strong. All right. Well, we're going to get more from you in a second.
We have maybe 70, maybe 80 businesses, and we ask them to behave in a way that doesn't hurt our reputation at Berkshire Hathaway, but they run their own lives. We have all the money we need. You know, we'd like to have more, but we can afford to lose money. But we can't afford to lose reputation, not a shred of reputation. And therefore, I ask the managers, I ask them to judge every action they take, not just by legal standards, although obviously that's the first test, but also by the test, what I call the newspaper test. How would they feel about any given action if they knew it was to be written up the next day in their local paper, to be read by their family, by their friends, by their neighbors, written by a smart but kind of unfriendly reporter. And if it passes that test, it's okay. And I tell them if anything is close to the lines, it's out. And they can always call me if they wanted to check something. But if they call me, there's something wrong with it probably anyway. So, and that's about it.
In Microsoft's case, our top management team, the majority of them joined us as right after whatever degree they got, if any. Now, our business in many ways is kind of simple. It's about writing great software. We sit down every year to go through the various things that people have to be careful about. We have products that have high market share. We do business all over the world. So there's some particular dictates, how you work with suppliers, gifts they might come forward with. But it's mainly the seeing these people in action that make us confident about their behavior.
I should mention that I am the only college grad up here. I mean,
yeah, I'll be taking my Harvard shirt off pretty soon because I didn't complete the whole course, so I didn't think I should leave it on the whole time.
Well, they don't allow you to wear it more than half the day, as I understand it, actually. I like numbers. Started before I could remember. It just felt good working with numbers. I was always playing around with numbers in one way or another, and it was fun to have a bunch of guys over and have them betting on which marble would reach the drain first. I had a lot of energy as a kid. I was inquisitive, and I was the youngest one always in the class because I'd skip. I've always been competitive. I like to read more than most kids. I really like to read a lot. My Aunt Edie gave me a copy of the World Almanac, and that was heaven to me. And I can still tell you that the almost population was 214,006 in 1930. Some numbers just kind of stick with you. And very early, probably when I was 7 or so, I took this book out of the Benson Library called 1,000 Ways to Make $1,000. And one of the ways in this book was having penny weighing machines. And I sat and calculated how much it would cost to buy the first weighing machine and then how long it would take for the profit for that one to buy another one. And I would sit there and create these compound interest tables to figure out how long it would take me to have a weighing machine for every person in the world. I had everybody in the country weighing themselves 10 times a day, and me just sitting there like John D. Rockefeller's weighing machines. The allowance when I was a little boy was a nickel a week, but I liked the idea of having a little more than a nickel a week to work with, and I went into business very early. I started selling Coca-Cola door to door. I sold gum door to door, or sold Saturday Evening Post, Liberty Magazine, Ladies Home Journal, you name it. I think I enjoyed the game almost right from the start. But I like being my own boss. That's one thing I liked about delivering papers. I could arrange the route I wanted. Nobody was bothering me at 5 or 6 in the morning. I was delivering 500 papers a day, and I made a penny a paper, but in terms of compounding, that penny turned into something else.
Yeah, this being on the Berkshire board is a real honor for me, and I just joined the board last December. I have to say it's not very remunerative. I couldn't even make the flight out here on my Berkshire director's fee.
I didn't hear that part.
But Berkshire's been organized in a very unique way. And of course, very different from my business experience, which is all really related to software and what goes on there. So I'm looking forward to being a good advisor, making sure that Berkshire's grooming people for whatever succession eventually has to take place. But it won't be me. Berkshire's got a lot of great people, and they understand the unique system there, and will step up to it.
We pay our board, our directors, $900 a year, and I really would like to pay them more, but Bill's so far ahead of me on that Forbes list already. I don't want to give him any ammunition. And seriously, we're very, very lucky. I mean, there are people that would pay anything to have Bill on their board, and it's a real act of friendship that he has come on the Berkshire board. It takes a lot of time. If the rewards are there, they're only psychic, but to have him there, you know, with this small difference in our ages, makes me feel very good. I'm the older, actually. I just explained it. It makes me feel very good to know that I've got people of both of the quality and the experience and everything else to make that decision when I'm not there the next morning. So I'm very grateful.
Okay, thank you.
Here it comes. Yeah. He's got it. Bring out his high school. The compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world or something like that. And it goes back to that story you probably learned when you were in grade school, where somebody did something for the king, and the king said, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "Well, let's take a chessboard and put one kernel of wheat on the first square, and then double it on the second and double it on the third." And the king readily agreed to it, and by the time he figured out what 2 to the 64th amounted to, he was giving away the entire kingdom. So it's a pretty simple concept, but over time, it accomplishes extraordinary things. When I got out of the University of Nebraska, I applied to Harvard Business School. They told me I was to get interviewed in a place near Chicago. I got there, and he interviewed me for about 10 minutes. And he said, "Forget it. You're not going to Harvard." And so now I'm thinking, what do I tell my dad? You know, this is terrible. And it turned out to be the best thing ever happened to me. Later that summer, I was looking through a catalog. And in the catalog, it had these names of people that were teaching. And one was Graham and another was Dodd. I had read this book by the two of them So I wrote him a letter in mid-August, and I said, "Dear Professor Dodd," I said, "I thought you guys were dead. But now that I found out that you're alive and teaching at Columbia, I would really like to come." And he admitted me. So, you know, that it just shows you never can tell.
Gentlemen, best Graham.
Ben was this incredible teacher. I mean, he was a natural, and he drew us all in.
Are Wall Street professionals more accurate in the shorter term than the long-term forecast?
Well, our studies indicate that you have your choice between tossing coins and taking the consensus of expert opinion. And the results are just about the same in each case.
It was like learning baseball from a fellow who was batting 400. It really, it shaped my professional life. Yeah, we have these things. We don't talk about them. No, I met Bill on July 5th, 1991. And I was out in Washington as a guest of a friend of mine who was an editorial page editor of the Washington Post. And she knew Bill's parents and said, "We're going down to this place on the Hood Canal to meet the senior Gateses, and Bill may show up, and I'll let Bill take it from there."
Well, it was a funny event because my mom was very sociable and always, you know, getting people together. And I, at this time, didn't believe in vacations. You know, I was totally focused on my job. And so when she said to me, "You've got to come out and meet," it was Warren and Katharine Graham and a couple other people, I said, "Mom, I'm busy." And, you know, and she said, "No, this will be great." And I thought, well, I'm not sure. You know, I'm into this software thing, and I don't know much about investing. And I hadn't thought about it much. But I went out, and so Warren and I met, and I'd actually come out in a helicopter. I was planning to go back a few hours later. But then by the end of the day, I was there just talking with Warren. And so it began a really unbelievable friendship for me. And, you know, I could tell that even though we came from different directions, the kinds of things that fascinated us and that we thought were important were very much the same. And so, you know, for the last 14 years, we found every excuse possible to get together, whether it's, you know, bridge or golf. But really, it's about talking about the world and thinking about what's going on in it that's at the core of it.
The moral of that is listen to your mother. The first books I read on investment were actually in my dad's office. Pretty soon I read all the books in the office and read some of them more than once. My dad had various nicknames for me. He'd call me Fireball sometimes because I'd start little businesses. He didn't care about money at all. He believed very much in having an inner scorecard and never worry about what other people are thinking about you. You know, just if you know why you're doing what you're doing, that's good enough. I admired everything about him to the extent that I was absorbing lessons from him without knowing it. And the idea that all lives have equal value is something that all three of his children felt since I can remember. The world is a great movie to watch, but you don't want to sleepwalk through life. The important thing to do is to look for the job you would take if you didn't need a job. And life is wonderful then. I mean, you know, you jump out of bed in the morning because you're really looking forward to the day. I have, for over 60 years, been able to tap dance to work just because I'm doing what I love doing. And I just feel very, very lucky. Okay, class dismissed.
fear death?
No, I don't. I've had a terrific life. I feel, it's going to happen. And I have no idea what happens after it. I'm an agnostic, so it may be terribly interesting. It may not be interesting at all. We'll find out. But physically, I'm pretty well depreciated. I'm getting down to salvage value. But it really doesn't make any difference at all. It doesn't interfere with my work. It doesn't interfere with my happiness. It doesn't interfere with my thinking. I don't feel any diminution in my enjoyment of life or enthusiasm for life at all. In fact, in a sense, the game that I'm in gets more interesting all the time. It's a competitive game. It's a big game. And I enjoyed the game a lot.